Welcome to Faith in 5, a weekly video devotional designed to discuss practical spiritual concepts in 5 minutes or less. I'm your host, Mark Vandella. One of the favorite things I get to do as a pastor is perform weddings. And I love both the ceremony and the party that follows. And one of the things that I like to do at the beginning of a ceremony is I like to remind the crowd that they're there because they've played some significant role in the lives of this couple. You know, and oftentimes when we get a wedding invitation, we think, oh, man, another wedding. If we have a bunch, and I know a number of people who have had just like 10, 12 wedding summers. And so I like to remind people that you're here because you've done something significant. Let's celebrate that moment. And one wedding a couple years ago, I had a guy named Bill come up to me and say, you know what, thanks for that reminder. I really appreciate it. I want to share with you that one of the things my wife and I do is we always, whenever we get a wedding invitation, we get excited. Because he said what we do is we sit in the crowd, and when the vows are about to happen, one of us reaches over and grabs the other's hand. And we picture ourselves back in that spot where we got to stand in front of our friends and family and before our God and make these commitments when we celebrated. And so we can't wait for wedding invitations because it gives us a chance to pause and take a moment to celebrate what God's done in our lives and the many cool things that He's brought us through, the difficulties that we've overcome together. And he just kind of made me think, man, what a cool deal. Man, if as a pastor, again, if I ever get to sit in the crowd and enjoy a wedding with my wife, I hope that I have that same celebratory attitude that I get to see. You know, actually, there's a spot in the Bible that Paul is kind of ranting. He's ranting about marriage and how it's easier to serve God when we aren't attached to somebody else. And he goes on these paragraphs of, you know, men should not get married because they need to be able to serve, they're better able to serve God. And women should not get married because it's distracting and they've got other things that they need to tend to if they've got a person that they're attached to, right? And so he goes on and he almost says, like, look, I'm not trying to be a jerk. You know, in so many words, he says, I really want what's best for you. And I'm saying this because I want you to understand. He says it in 1 Corinthians 7:35. He says, I want you to be able to serve the Lord best. And so my answer at the time when I read this and I started prepare different messages for weddings, I was already married. And I also had a bunch of friendships and I have a family. And those things do take time to manage. And so I kind of took that as a challenge to say, you know what, Paul? You want me to be able to serve the Lord best. What if in these relationships that I already have, what if I choose to have these relationships exist in a way? What if I serve and love and act in a way that points people to you? That my relationships actually do serve God better than I could alone. That by the way that these relationships work, whether it's marriage or family or friends, that the way that the conversations we have and the ways that we complement one another, that they actually make me a better person. And that by doing that, I can continue to point people to you. And I think the way that we do that best is like my friend Bill said. He said, we take time to celebrate. We know that this is a spot that we can say, God, you have brought us together and you've gotten us through some really tough stuff, and we want to continue to celebrate what you've done. And there's a spot in 1 Samuel, verse 7:12, where Samuel is talking that he just defeats the Philistines, and he wants to make sure that everybody realizes that it was God that played a part in that. And so Samuel takes a stone and he says, you know, I'm going to put this stone right here in the middle of our two cities, and I'm going to say, this is an Ebenezer. And so the term Ebenezer is that it's really rock of help. So he kind of assigns this. This is a moment that God participated with us, that He joined us, and that this honors God. And so as you work in your relationships and as you go out and interact with your spouses and your family and your friends, I want to encourage you to celebrate. Take the time to focus on the things that you do right and the times that God's brought you through tough times. And celebrate those. Pause enough that you maybe even create a meal, that you create a gift or something that commemorates, so to speak, that identifies that this is something God has done in our lives. This is our Ebenezer. These are our top 5 things that we've ever done, or here's a really significant place. Take time to do that, or we just never do. I think we need more families. We need more marriages and more friends that are pointing, that those relationships point to God, rather than distract from and get in the way of fully serving our God. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to follow us each week, click here to subscribe. And if you want to take it a little bit further, click here for discussion materials.